Here's a truth no one likes to admit. Sometimes the people you love most will take from you until there's nothing left, and then still look you in the eye and tell you it's not enough. I'm 68 years old. 3 months ago, I paid off my son's mortgage, every cent of it. No debt, no strings, just love. But the very next day, my daughter-in-law told me I shouldn't expect to be treated like royalty. What she didn't know is that when I paid off that house, I quietly put the deed in my name. And when she found out, it started a battle that nearly tore my family apart. Before I tell you how it ended and the one move that left her with nothing, ask yourself, what would you have done in my place? And if you believe no good deed should go unprotected, you might want to hit that subscribe button right now, because this isn't just my story. It could be yours one day. 3 months ago, I did something most mothers only dream about. I paid off my son's mortgage, all of it, every last cent. The debt that had been hanging over his young family's head for years, gone in a single wire transfer. It wasn't easy for me. I'm a 68-year-old widow living on my pension and the savings I've scraped together from a lifetime of hard work as a school librarian. But when I saw my son, Mark, struggling under the weight of that mortgage, working double shifts, barely seeing his kids, I thought, if I can make his life easier, why wouldn't I? I pictured them thanking me with hugs, maybe a family dinner in my honor, the grandkids drawing me little "thank you, Grandma" cards. That's the fantasy I built in my head. Reality was colder. The day after the mortgage was cleared, I came over with homemade lasagna to celebrate. My daughter-in-law, Tessa, opened the door. She barely looked at me before blurting, "Oh, hi. Just so you know, paying off the house doesn't mean you get to be treated like royalty." I froze. "Excuse me?" She crossed her arms. "Mark and I appreciate what you did, but you shouldn't expect us to roll out a red carpet every time we visit. This is our home." I stood there with the casserole cooling in my hands, my heart pounding. I hadn't asked for a crown or a throne. I just thought kindness was worth a little kindness back. Mark walked in from the kitchen then, smiling at first, until he saw my face. "What's going on?" he asked. Tessa gave a sweet smile, the kind women wear when they want to look innocent but still deliver the sting. "I was just making sure your mom understands that this house is ours, not hers." I didn't say what was already burning on my tongue, because the truth was, Tessa didn't know. She didn't know that when I paid off the mortgage, I didn't just write a check. I restructured the loan and put the title in my name. And in that moment, as she stood there acting like I was an unwanted guest in a house I now legally owned, I decided something. I wasn't going to tell her yet. No. I'd wait. And when the time was right, I'd make sure she understood exactly whose roof she was living under. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tessa's face, her smug little smirk when she said, "This is our home, not yours." The next morning, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the title deed tucked safely inside my lockbox. My name, my signature, the ink still fresh. I hadn't done it to take control, but rather as a way to protect my son. I'd seen too many people lose their homes to foreclosure, and if something ever happened, I wanted to make sure the kids still had a roof over their heads. But Tessa's attitude, well, let's just say it planted a new seed in my mind. That weekend, I came by to see the grandkids. I knocked, expecting one of them to fling the door open and yell, "Grandma!" Instead, Tessa opened it halfway, her body blocking the view inside. Tessa: "Oh, you didn't call first." Me: "It's Saturday. I thought I'd take the kids to the park." She sighed like I'd just asked to borrow her kidney. "They're busy right now. Besides, we have plans later." Me: "Plans they can't take a break from for their grandmother?" Before she could answer, Mark appeared behind her. His face lit up when he saw me. "Mom, come in." Tessa stepped aside reluctantly, muttering something about the living room being messy. I walked in and was hit with a wall of toys, snack wrappers, and half-folded laundry piled on the couch. The kids came running in, wrapping their arms around me. "Grandma, can we go to the swings? And get ice cream?" I smiled. "Of course, if it's all right with your parents." Tessa's lips tightened. "We already have plans, maybe next weekend." Mark glanced between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Tess, it's just the park. They can be back in a couple of hours." "And who's going to help me clean up before dinner with the Millers? You know I hate rushing." Mark rubbed his forehead. "Fine, next weekend." The disappointment on my grandkids' faces was like a punch to my chest. I decided to change the subject. "Well, I brought over the lasagna I made. Thought we could all have lunch together." Tessa gave a tight smile. "That's sweet, but I've already got something in the oven." "So we can have two options." She looked like she wanted to argue, but Mark spoke up. "Yeah, Mom's lasagna sounds great." While we ate, Tessa kept glancing at her phone, texting furiously under the table. At one point she said, "You know, since the mortgage is paid off now, Mark and I have been talking about some renovations. We're thinking of knocking down the wall between the kitchen and dining room." "That's a big change. Did you talk to the bank about permits?" She waved a hand. "We don't need to. It's our house. We can do what we want." I raised an eyebrow. "That's not entirely true. Sometimes the owner has to sign off." She smirked. "Mark and I are the owners, remember?" I took a slow sip of water, holding her gaze. "If you say so." Later, as I was leaving, Mark walked me to the door. "Mom, is everything okay? You've been quiet." "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking." "About what?" I placed my hand on his arm. "About how quickly people forget who's really looking out for them." He frowned, clearly puzzled. But before he could ask more, Tessa called from the kitchen. "Mark, can you help me with the dishes?" I left with a polite smile. But inside, I was already making plans. Plans to remind my daughter-in-law exactly whose name was on the papers she'd never bothered to read. The following week, I stopped by with a bag of groceries for the kids. Juice boxes, fruit snacks, a big tub of strawberries, all the little things they love. When I walked in, the house was unusually quiet. No cartoons blaring, no little feet pounding the floors. Instead, I found Tessa in the kitchen, leaning over a stack of design magazines with her laptop open. Me: "Hey, where are the kids?" Tessa: "Playdate with the neighbor. Gives me some peace to plan renovations." She turned the laptop so I could see. There was a sleek, modern kitchen on the screen, complete with marble countertops and a massive island. "We're getting rid of these ugly cabinets, replacing the floors, and maybe even adding a sunroom. The contractor said we could start in a couple of weeks if we pay the deposit now." I set the grocery bag on the counter. "That's fast. Did you get everything approved?" She frowned. "Approved by who?" I took my time pulling out the strawberries. The owner. Her voice got sharp. We are the owners. Remember, Mark and I live here. You don't. I let out a short laugh, not one of humor, but disbelief. That's one way to look at it. She stared at me for a beat too long, like she was trying to figure out if I meant something by that. Then she brushed it off. Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but if you're going to pop in all the time, you need to give us notice. I like my space. My blood warmed. Oh, you'll have plenty of space until the day I decide you don't. Her head tilted, eyes narrowing. What's that supposed to mean? I gave her a sweet smile. Nothing you need to worry about. Yet. That evening, my phone rang. It was Mark. Mom, what happened today? Tessa said you made some comments. I just reminded her that things aren't always as they seem. What does that even mean? It means that one day you might want to read your own mortgage paperwork before your wife starts swinging hammers. There was silence on the line. I could almost hear him processing my words. Mom, is there something you're not telling me? Yes, but you'll find out soon enough. The next weekend, the real test came. I pulled into the driveway and saw a big white van out front with Henderson Home Renovations plastered on the side. 2 men were unloading tools and buckets of paint. I walked inside to find Tessa directing them like a queen ordering servants. Yes, knock down that wall and make sure the trim is... Oh, hi, Margaret. You're starting already? No time like the present. The faster we get it done, the faster we can actually enjoy the house our way. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You're going to regret starting without permission. She scoffed. From who? The Queen of England? I smiled. No, from the woman who owns the deed to the house you're standing in. Her face froze. Color drained from her cheeks. What did you just say? You heard me. And before you tell these men to swing a single hammer, you might want to tell your husband to check the county records. The room went still. Even the contractor seemed to sense the tension. Tessa's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. If this is some kind of sick joke, it's not funny. Oh, it's not a joke, but it is going to change everything for you. I turned and walked out, leaving her standing there with her mouth half open, her big renovation plans crumbling before they even began. I knew it wouldn't take long for my phone to ring after I left that house. Sure enough, less than 2 hours later, I saw Mark's name flashing on the screen. His voice was sharp, his words clipped. Mom, we need to talk, now. Your place or mine? You know where. When I pulled into the driveway, Tessa was standing at the window, arms crossed, watching me like a hawk. Mark opened the door before I even knocked. He didn't smile, he didn't hug me. He just stepped aside and motioned for me to come in. The kids were upstairs, thank God. The living room was tense enough to choke on. Mark says you told her you own the deed to this house? Is that true? Yes. His eyes widened. What? Tessa jumped in before I could say more. Mark, I told you. She's just trying to scare me. She's been acting like this ever since she paid off the mortgage, like we owe her something. I looked right at her. You do owe me something, Tessa. It's called respect. Mark held up a hand. Wait. Are you saying you really own the house? I reached into my purse, pulled out a manila envelope, and set it on the coffee table. Inside was a copy of the title deed, my name printed clearly at the top. He stared at it, his face pale. Why? Why would you do this? Because I wanted to protect you. If anything happened, job loss, illness, whatever, The bank couldn't take this house away from your kids. I didn't think it mattered whose name was on the paper as long as you had a home. Tessa's voice was icy. Oh, it matters. You basically made us tenants in our own house. Not tenants, family. Big difference. But after the way you've been treating me, I'm starting to wonder why I even bothered. Mark ran a hand over his face. Mom, you should have told me. Maybe, but I know your wife, Mark, and I knew exactly how she'd react. Seems I was right. Tessa's eyes flashed. So what now, Margaret? Are you going to lord this over us every time you visit? Make us bow down? Is that what you want? What I wanted was to be treated with a little decency. But instead, I've been told not to expect to be treated like royalty, like I'm some stranger barging in. Mark's voice rose. Enough. This is insane. You both need to calm down. I stood. I am calm, but you two need to understand something. This house isn't just some gift you can treat like it fell from the sky. I put my name on it for a reason. And if I'm not welcome here, then maybe I need to reconsider who is. Tessa's jaw dropped. Are you threatening to throw us out? I held her gaze. I'm saying, if the person under my roof thinks I'm the enemy, maybe they shouldn't be under my roof at all. Mark looked like he had just been punched. Mom, you can't be serious. I softened my tone slightly. I love you, Mark. I love the kids. But love doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. I turned toward the door. I'll give you time to think about how you want to handle this. But make no mistake, the next move is yours. As I stepped outside, I could hear their voices erupt behind me. Tessa's was sharp and high-pitched, Mark's low and furious. I didn't need to hear the words to know that the cracks in their marriage had just deepened because of me. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't entirely a bad thing. I didn't hear from Mark for 2 full days. No calls, no texts, nothing. But on the 3rd morning, my phone lit up with a message from Tessa. Since you think this is your house, you can have it. Mark and I are moving out. You won't be seeing the kids again. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the words, my coffee going cold in my hands. Was she bluffing? Trying to scare me? I decided to find out. That afternoon, I drove over. The driveway was full of boxes, a rental truck idling at the curb. Tessa was on the porch, arms crossed like she was the sheriff of the property. What's going on here? What does it look like? We're moving. You win, Margaret. You can sit in your big empty house all by yourself. I'll make sure Mark knows this was all you're doing. Oh, I have no doubt you'll spin it that way. But let's be clear. This wasn't my doing. You made it impossible to be in the same room without turning it into a battlefield. Mark appeared at the door, looking worn out. Mom, this isn't how I wanted things to go. But Tess is right. This living situation is toxic. Mark, you don't live with me. You live in a house I let you believe was yours. There's a difference. Tessa cut in sharply. No, you tricked us, and you can keep your precious deed. We're going somewhere we actually feel at home. I looked at Mark. And the kids? You're really going to uproot them because your wife can't stand me? Tessa's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare make this about the kids. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. It is about the kids, because one day they'll be old enough to understand that I tried to protect them, and they'll remember who kept them away from me. Tessa's face flushed with anger. Oh, I'll make sure they remember exactly what you did. That's when I played my card. Fine. You want to move? Go ahead. But you should probably read the terms of occupancy first. Tessa scoffed. What terms? The ones that say if the house is vacated for more than 90 days, I'm legally entitled to reclaim full possession without notice, which means when you leave, you can't come back, not even if Mark changes his mind. Mark's head snapped toward me. That's not true. I smiled faintly. Check the paperwork. It's all there. Tessa's bravado cracked, just slightly. You can't just lock us out. I can, and I will. Because I've spent my life bending over backwards for family who take and take without ever thinking about what they give in return. I'm done. Mark looked between us, torn. Mom, this is insane. No, Mark, this is me setting boundaries, something I should have done a long time ago. I turned and walked back to my car, but as I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Tessa in the rearview mirror, standing rigid on the porch, her mind clearly spinning. And I knew she wasn't going to back down quietly.
2 days later, I woke to a loud knock on my door. When I opened it, there stood a man in a suit holding a clipboard. Mrs. Dawson, you've been served. He handed me an envelope and walked away. Inside were legal papers. Tessa Dawson and Mark Dawson versus Margaret Dawson. They were challenging the deed, claiming I had manipulated the situation and committed fraudulent transfer of ownership. I almost laughed. Fraud. I'd paid every cent fair and square, and the transfer had been done by a lawyer with both my signature and Mark's. He just never realized what he was signing because the paperwork had been buried in the refinancing documents. I didn't call Mark. I didn't call Tessa. I called my lawyer, an old friend named Gloria, who'd been handling my affairs for over 20 years. She read the papers, smirked, and said, "This will take me all of 20 minutes to crush. But do you want to win quietly or make a point?" I said, "Oh, I want to make a point. A big one." The court date was set for 2 weeks later. When I walked into the courtroom, Tessa was dressed like she was auditioning for a legal drama. Pencil skirt, pearl earrings, hair in a perfect bun. Mark looked exhausted, like a man dragged somewhere he didn't want to be. Gloria presented the documents: the payment receipt for the full mortgage, the title transfer signed by Mark himself, and the notarized agreement that gave me sole ownership rights. Tessa's lawyer tried to argue emotional manipulation. Gloria simply leaned forward and said, "My client is a retired librarian who gave her son the gift of a debt-free life. If gratitude is now considered emotional manipulation, then we're all doomed." Even the judge chuckled. It took less than 30 minutes for the ruling to come down. The deed was mine, completely, permanently. But I wasn't done. When we left the courtroom, I handed Mark a sealed envelope. I said, "Inside is a written agreement allowing you and the kids to stay in the house as long as you want, rent-free. But only you and the kids. Tessa isn't included." Tessa's mouth fell open. "You can't do that." "Oh, I can. You see, it's my house. And the clause specifically says, if your marriage ends, you have 30 days to move out. No exceptions." Mark stared at me, shocked. "Mom, why would you—" "Because you're my son. Those kids are my grandchildren. But Tessa? She's been nothing but poison since the day I cleared your debt. I won't throw you and the kids out, but I will make sure she never has power over me or this home again." Tessa's voice shook with fury. "You think you've won? You'll never see the kids again." I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "Mark's name is on the custody papers too.
And if you think for 1 second he'll cut his mother out after everything I've done, then you've underestimated more than just me. 2 months later, Tessa was gone. She left in a storm of slammed doors and muttered curses, moving in with a friend across town. Mark and the kids stayed. Slowly, the tension lifted. The kids came running to me after school again, and the house started to feel like a home instead of a war zone. And sometimes, late at night, I'd sit in the quiet living room and think about how easily gratitude turns into entitlement, and how quickly entitlement can destroy a family. But I'd also think about the lesson I'd learned. Sometimes, the only way to keep the peace is to make sure your name is on the deed.